Hello and welcome to Open House 2021. We are Team 3. My name is Mrs. Deidre Lamo. I teach ELA.
My name is Mrs. Laganya. I teach pre-algebra.
I'm Mr. Tobin. I teach social studies.
And I'm Mr. Behringer. I teach science.
Thank you for joining us virtually. We have really enjoyed getting to know your students for the past 2 months. We look forward to getting to know them better this year. We really hope to create a positive school experience this year as a return to normalcy. We're really happy to have them in person with us this year.
Yeah, so before we go any further, we just wanted to really quickly show you what a very typical day for your student would look like. So just some quick highlights for you to take notice of. In the morning time, being before lunch, they'll typically have 2 of their core subjects. So that would either be math, social studies, science, or ELA. They'll also have something in there called advisor time, which I'm sure you'll hear them talk about. We'll talk a little bit more about that later. And then they'll come back in the afternoon again for 2 more of their core subjects. So it's kind of nice with our schedule this year that we have 2 and 2 with a little break in between each of their core classes. It's a nice schedule this year.
So in English Language Arts this year, we put a heavy focus on close reading and analysis of text. We read both fiction and nonfiction. There are a bunch of skills that we work on with reading, inferencing, critical thinking, author's purpose. We'll look at a number of different things as we read. We'll also use the program Sadlier for vocabulary, and that's a continuation of what they did at Boyce. Also with No Red Ink to practice our grammar skills. That's a continuation from Boyce as well. And we like to teach grammar in the context of writing because our basic goal of language arts is to make students better communicators, whether that's through speaking, listening, writing. The goal is to make students better communicators.
In pre-algebra this year, we're going to start off with a lot of review, but they will be reviewing things that they've learned and then taking it to a deeper level. The rigor definitely builds. So hopefully right now you're hearing like, yes, math is feeling pretty comfortable. Generally, the third 9 weeks is really tough for students. The geometry unit gets very challenging, so the rigor will pick up. And then we finish the year with applications and data analysis. It's a little more fun and comes back to a little bit more relaxing for the students. In each chapter, we do try to incorporate a project, so something that they could create, something that we can demonstrate our learning in a fun way. You might have seen your students working on 24 cards. This last chapter, later in the year, we will hopefully do our probability carnival and a restaurant project. So they're learning a lot that will be helpful for their Keystone exam next year as 8th graders, but we're still building on what they learned last year and trying to incorporate it in a very fun way.
So in science this year, a lot of what we focus on is lab skill development. Yeah, the content is there. It's important. We need to make sure that we're going over the contents that we're going to talk about this year, like light and cells, genetics, and earth. But really the focus is going to be on, can we do lab procedure? Can we, in any setting in the future, understand what we need to do in order to solve a problem when we're in that lab setting? So yeah, the focus is going to be on content, but even more so, we're going to focus on getting these guys ready for science next year and then beyond as they move up into high school.
And in social studies, our focus this year is primarily American history. So we start with the colonies and the formation of those 13 colonies in North America. And we build all the way through the Revolutionary War, American government, the Civil War, westward expansion, and we finish with Reconstruction at the very end. And that's something that kind of bridges from what they did in 6th grade with ancient civilizations. And then next year, they'll continue in 8th grade with the second portion of American history. And one of the things that we really focus on in social studies is these cognitive skills. So the thinking skills that go along with the content that they're learning. And so as a social studies department, our goal, our mission is to develop students who are critical users of information that can confront and tackle complex modern problems. And then ultimately that they are civic minded and they're engaged with the democratic process.
Yeah, just I think everybody in here is probably pretty familiar with Canvas, but just a little quick overview. Canvas is one of the best tools that we have. It provides resources essentially at will for not only students, but also for parents at home. One of the things that we love it for is the fact that if a student has to be out of school for any particular reason, all the materials that they would need for that day are going to be present on Canvas. So in this picture, we wanted to include an image of a typical calendar that you might see in a class. This is the example from social studies. So Mr. Tobin has his his calendar up there. So if he were to, or if a student were to be missing, let's say on Wednesday, they would just go to that day on the calendar, click on the link that is located in there, and they would find everything that they would need in order to complete the assignment for that day. Now, of course, if a student would have questions, email. Let us know that you're struggling. Let us know that you need a little help. But the place to start would be on Canvas in order to complete the lesson. All right, now as far as those assignments goes that they would be completing, we really focus on two unique aspects here. The first one being work habits, and you're going to see this in a couple of seconds, but we're going to provide each student feedback on every assignment as to how they're doing as far as their work habits. Are they completing things on time? Are they following the directions within the assignment? And are they providing enough effort on those assignments? We're going to be monitoring those work habits throughout the entire year this year. We also are going to be looking at assignment mastery. Now, this is something that is very unique to Team 3 because all of Team 3, all the teachers on Team 3 are on board with grading work as complete versus incomplete. It's a very unique thing in ForCouch for us to be doing this, but we're very excited about it. So the students are going to have the opportunity that if a teacher would mark something as incomplete, to revise it, to go back and get help on the assignment, and to resubmit that assignment in order to complete that assignment. So all students are given the opportunity to work until the assignment is complete.
Okay, so what would that actually look like in a Canvas gradebook? And if you've had your student show you their gradebook in the past, or if you've checked it out on your own, this is what it might look like. So this is a snapshot from ELA, and you'll see that in here, some assignments are graded for points. So things that might be quizzes, or we're checking for content knowledge, they might be graded as points. And so you can see some examples here, something that is 15 out of 15 or 14 out of 15. But then you'll also see a lot of assignments that are marked with a check mark or an X. So a check mark would indicate that that assignment is completed properly and is in Canvas as a 100% for that assignment. If there's an X, that would indicate that it's currently incomplete. And in that case, there's going to be some type of portion that needs to be revised. And so typically there will be a comment associated with that, which we'll show you in a moment, to help students make corrections on any assignments. You can also see here, there's an assignment that's been submitted late, and then one that's also currently missing. So it's an easy way to kind of keep tabs on how things are going for your student. And the four of us I feel like we're all constantly grading. So if you're ever unsure if something is truly reflecting their current status, please ask us, but know that we're always grading, and we're trying to stay on top of resubmissions as frequently as we can. Okay, so in terms of what that looks like for an assignment submission. So here's an example from social studies of an incomplete assignment. And you can see that arrow in the top corner there is pointing to the fact that the grade for this assignment is incomplete. And then down below, that second arrow is pointing to the comment that has been left by the teacher on that assignment for specifically what needs to be revised. And if you or a student is ever struggling with what that comment is asking for, or what needs to be revised, please come ask, send an email if that's needed. But that's where you would find what needs to be corrected if an assignment has been marked incomplete. And then the other thing that we wanted to show you in a Canvas submission, we have a lot of rubrics for the assignments. And so Mr. Behringer mentioned a few seconds ago the work habits. So one of the things that you'll see on your students' Canvas submissions is work habits grades. So you would see typically at the top of an assignment submission, these three criteria, these work habits. Was the assignment turned in on time? Did they follow directions? Is it with effort? And so again, that's gaining feedback for us and for students and for you to see consistently what types of work habits are we seeing. And then for this assignment down below, the other half of this rubric is the cognitive skills. So in this screenshot, you can see the cognitive skill that we were working on in this assignment was word choice. And so you'll be able to see the students' mastery of the cognitive skills on the bottom half of that worksheet as well.
Okay, Panther Time. We are very lucky to have this time. It's in the middle of the day, so you'll see 11:40 to 12:20. That's right after your seventh graders eat lunch. And this is a time for mastery, review, enrichment. It is academic focused, but it's a little less structured than a typical class time. So every morning, students will check their email, and they may see an email there from a teacher who is inviting them to ELA Mastery during Panther Time. And if you were invited to ELA Mastery during Panther Time, that's my very nice way of saying, I need to see you today for whatever assignment, for whatever makeup work, and then they can report to me. If they are not invited to a Panther Time session, they get to choose where they go. So we really encourage students to take that responsibility to be self-reflective and say, hey, what do I need to work on during this time? What teacher do I need to ask questions? Where do I need to get help? So we always try to encourage students to work on your toughest subject at that time. If you're really struggling in math class, okay, we'll do it during Panther Time. That way you can go and see Mrs. Lagana and ask as many questions. That way you guys at home aren't responsible for doing seventh grade math at homework time, right? So do the thing you like the least is what I always say. Get it done, get it off your plate. And Panther Time is a great time for that. Panther Time can be used, it can be used for homework, but we like to use it for reteaching and retesting, fixing those assignments that need to be resubmitted. We might do a review session. So this day will look a little bit different, but when students sign up in the morning, they'll see a list of options of what's available for them, and then they choose where they're going based on what their needs are.
Now, period 8 is another really wonderful time of the day that we have here. This is a time of the day for students to get their work done. So if they ever come home and they say, I didn't have time to do any of this stuff, maybe ask them about what they're doing during period 8, because period 8 is 30 minutes at the end of the day where they just get quiet time to sit and do their work. They can also at that time, because they're going to be with us on team, they can at that time go and get help. So if they are struggling with math, they can go and get help from Mrs. Lagana. If they don't understand something that they did today in social studies, they can go and ask Mr. Tobin. So this is really a time of the day for students to get help from their teachers, but also just get a jump start on whatever they may need to do as far as homework later on.
So one thing we do this year in both ELA and math is the NWEA MAP testing. And it's given 3 times a year in the fall, the winter, and the spring. And it's kind of a benchmark for us. So your student has already taken it this fall. And when we look at the fall scores, it's a nice starting point for us to get to know what is your child's capable of in both reading and math. Where do they stand? And then we look at it again in the winter and we look at some growth data. So we look where were they in the fall, and then hopefully during that time they've shown some growth. Right? So the nice thing about this, we've been giving this assessment for a couple of years now, and you're going to see that data, those scores coming home to you this winter. So sometime, my guess is January, maybe February, look for a MAP growth report to come home to you, and it will show both the fall score and the winter score. And it's a really nice tool for teachers as we look at students. It gives us so much data on them, and it really helps inform our teaching and our assessments of students and what they're able to do, and are they growing or are they struggling. So this is a really nice piece of data we have on students.
Right, so a couple of our sections on Team 3 this year are MYP sections, part of the International Baccalaureate program. So if you are in an MYP subject or section for this year, we have in that section an increased focus on a few things, including international mindedness, these global contexts, which you might have heard of before, approaches to learning that are based on the International Baccalaureate profile. And if you've been a part of the MYP process before, then you know that there's a community service requirement that comes with that. And if you have any questions or concerns about MYP, you can contact Mr. Palmer, the school counselor for 7th grade this year, or Mr. Bowers. He's our IB coordinator at Fort Couch.
All right, so one of the main things I think we do really well here at Fort Couch is, guys, we're a great transition spot from boys middle school, 5th, 6th grade, to getting them ready for the high school, where they're going to be getting grades for their official transcript and everything, right? So students are learning how to be their own students this year. And we just want you guys to know, like, our expectation for 7th graders is that they're growing in their responsibility for their learning. So we want the parents to be able to step back a little bit. We want the students to be looking at their evening schedule, right? And saying, okay, I have practice after practice tonight. I don't have any time. I need to be focusing and getting my homework done during period 8. Like Mrs. D said, when we share those MAP scores, we want the students to be focused on not what their number is or what their grade was, but where did they grow from? Every student is at a different starting point, and that is okay. But we just want them to kind of turn their eyes inward a little bit and focus on them growing in each subject and their mastery themselves. And then also really getting better at being advocates for themselves, right? So that Panther Time opportunity, we're encouraging and hoping that they will take the initiative to sign up for where they need to go. But then also we are behind them, nudging them when they need that reminder of, hey, this is where you need to go, because they're 7th graders and they're still figuring it out. They're still wanting to be with their friends, right? But we're aware of that, and we're all working together on this. Suggestion for homework, we just thought it'd be helpful. Don't be afraid as the parent to say, like, maybe you should work at the kitchen table doing your homework and set up an evening routine. Not every student needs this, right? If you check their grade book and they're working in their bedroom, but everything is submitted and complete and it's not a problem, like, I would say let them work in their bedroom. But if you notice that they're missing some assignments and things are getting behind, don't be afraid to say, like, I want you working down at the kitchen table, right? Sometimes that public setting is good. If we check in on the bedroom homework routines, they might be on their cell phone or losing focus. And then just for you guys as parents, we wanted to say, like, again, we know you have the Canvas parent apps. We also know you are very busy and you have already completed 7th grade. So instead of you having to check their grades, like, if you want to check their grades once a week, that's great. Or even better yet, ask the student to pull it up on their Chromebook. Hey, show me your grade book in each of the subjects, because then it's encouraging the student to get in that habit themselves. You know, not every day, but once a week. Like Mr. Tobin said earlier, we are constantly grading. So it may take us a couple days to get caught up on something. But if you check weekly, you'll have a good insight of where your student is. And if needed, like Mr. Tobin talked about, you know, ask them, like, pull up the submission. Let me see what you submitted. Let me see the comments to see if because they might say, I resubmitted that. They just haven't graded it yet, you know, and you are always welcome to email us. Just reach out and let us know, but also have the student pull it up, because they might have resubmitted but not actually seen the comment, or maybe they resubmitted the wrong document or something like that. So we're really hopeful that we encourage the 7th graders to take on more responsibility. Next year gets a little more like high school, but we want them to be prepared to be owning this. And so you parents are in the sweet spot of hopefully stepping back a little bit, but checking in on them and making sure that they are where they need to be. And then for communication, if you want to reach out to us, email is definitely the best form of communication. If you have a question on anything, how your student is doing, is this assignment really still missing, anything that's going on in our class, please just send each one of us an email and we'll get back to you within a day or two. You can send messages through Canvas, but email will be the quickest form of communication for us to respond to. And we can certainly follow up with a phone call conversation or a team meeting if that's something that needs to be done as well. So we just want to say thank you so much for sharing your kids with us. It's been a fun start to the year. Like Mrs. D said at the beginning, we are all so thankful to be in person with your students and seeing maybe seeing their smiles behind the mask, seeing their smiles outside. But please reach out to us if you have any questions or concerns. We're so thankful for your support at home, and we're happy to be working together with you guys this year. All right, thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank you.